Some big names in the mainstream media forced to retract an explosive story on Rudy Giuliani after reporting that the FBI had warned Giuliani he was the target of a Russia disinformation campaign. However, many other news outlets didn't even cover the retractions, leading Giuliani to tweet this. On Saturday, the Washington Post added this correction to their defamatory story about me. The Washington Post and the NYT must reveal their sources who lied and targeted an American citizen. MSNBC, CNN forgot to mention the corrections today. Karl Rove, your reaction.
Well, interesting. The allegation was that the FBI had told Giuliani and another news organization that they were targets of Russian disinformation. And the correction says that the FBI planned to. So we got a couple of questions here. Why, if the FBI was planning to, did they not? And second of all, who went out and told all of these news organizations something that was fundamentally inaccurate? We'll probably never know the answer to the second. We're unlikely to know the answer to the first, but I'd sure like to know why the FBI was thinking about doing it and then decided not to do it. But, at least the Washington Post ran a retraction, a correction. But once you've smeared somebody's reputation or once you've laid a piece of misinformation out there, it's awfully hard to remove it from the public psyche.
No doubt. Reputational harm, very, very hard to fix on par. Kennedy, I have a couple of questions. Why did they believe this source? And was it simply one source?
I don't know.
Was it not two or three?
It could have been both of Michaels, Michael Avenatti and Michael Cohen, because they certainly have axes to grind with the former mayor of New York City as well as former President Trump. And just do the basic research. Do your homework. If you're getting a tip like that that could be defamatory, make sure you do the vetting so you don't have to go back and correct. And, the most shameful thing about the cycle that we're in and these times that we're in, of course, you want a big headline because you want clicks because that's how you make money. And that's, oftentimes the only revenue source. And that's how journalism is so easily compromised. The problem is, as Karl pointed out, the retraction gets maybe 1/32 the coverage that the initial headline gets, and that's probably being pretty generous. The former mayor may be in deep yogurt. We don't know. Just be patient and see what happens, and don't make stuff up, because when something real happens, people will not believe you.
It's so true. It's what I say about the R word that's being bandied about these days. Kayleigh, having had to make a few clarifications in my nearly 30-year journalism career, it's not always easy to have to do that. It really helps to work in the words apologize for the error. It doesn't hurt you to admit that you're human. What does hurt is it is so legalized that the retraction doesn't even get coverage, as Kennedy says. I mean, it's just boilerplate, oh, I dropped my shoe on the floor.
That's right. Look, there's an epidemic in American journalism, and it is anonymous sourcing, oftentimes the single anonymous source that ends up being wrong.
Deadly.
And you see the corrections, and you're right, the corrections barely get any coverage. There's reputational damage for Rudy Giuliani and others with that nuance there. But what is so important to me is the American people are seeing this. And Joe Concha, who you had on last hour, mentioned this Axios poll that came out that said 92% of Republicans believe that the media intentionally reports false stories, and 79% of independents. That is an extraordinary number. And Edelman researches the trust barometer, and this year they found that journalism is at its lowest point of trust. So there are real consequences when you have explosive stories like this, causing damage to someone's reputation. The American public recognizes it, and it leads to mistrust, which is really unfortunate for an important profession.
And, I come to you, Emily, because inside of a courtroom, I would imagine it's like you make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. But how did they all get on the same song sheet? Do they all have the same single source? It gets confusing to me. And why would that ever be enough?
right? And to pick up where my colleagues left off, I mean, it's not just the coverage, but it's also the amplification. And think about how many motions to dismiss are filed or motions to move venues are filed for trials where the defense counsel is arguing that the juror pool is tainted because of all the coverage, right? Well, imagine if that coverage was wrong. And imagine if the jury pool never saw the corrections. And you're talking about national media outlets. Exactly.